Blood and Leaves by Jade Joe. This story first appeared in The Thin Veil Press, October 2024. Edited by Meg Keane. It was Rob's idea to go camping. I'd known he was the outdoorsy type since we first got together, and I'd been expecting him to suggest it as a fun date activity, though I very much hoped he wouldn't. Sleeping on the hard ground without a toilet when you lived in a perfectly comfortable house was anathema to me. I couldn't get my head around how or why that was enjoyable. But when he asked me and gave me that sad puppy look, what choice did I have? We'd started seeing each other only a few months prior, and I suppose I still wanted to impress him. I'd been expecting a night in a local field or something, maybe the Lake District. When he showed up with cheap weekend tickets to the continent and his excited explanation that it would cost us almost nothing if we didn't spend any time in the city and rented a shit car, I wasn't exactly over the moon. After landing, we'd driven up most of the way. That had been our compromise. Then hiked on foot for a few hours, me constantly lagging behind. Rob steamed ahead, an enormous smile plastered across his red-cheeked face, just thrilled to be there. I keep thinking of the word, bucolic? The country here is so bucolic, he said. Is that what I mean? Am I using that right? Sounds like a word for plague. I'm dying of the bucolic death, I wheezed as I struggled to keep up. I think that's bubonic, he said. I had to admit it was a beautiful landscape. The air was fresh and clear, rising in thin mists over the rolling hills. Our steps were punctuated with the crunch of leaves beneath our feet and the twittering of birds. And it was all ours. We hadn't seen a soul since we'd left the car. After following the trail for several miles, Rob led me to the edge of a forested area and paused, hands on hips. So, I've read there's a beautiful hidden pool with a waterfall somewhere through here. He glanced at me expectantly, no words needed. I wanted to tell him it was annoying when he started sentences with so, but refrained. My mind was full of images of some stagnant, fly-covered bog, some crisp packet-lined puddle. Oh, not now, I pleaded. It'll be dark soon. We shouldn't leave the path. Maybe we can have a quick look tomorrow. He begged. We had to go. It was half the reason he'd made us come up here in the first place. Isn't that how people die by leaving the path, I said. The English calamity, the Dyatlov Pass incident. Both those groups were in freezing conditions. The lowest temperature we are going to face tonight will be 7 degrees Celsius. People walk their dogs up here, Lauren, he replied. I somehow doubted that. I finally agreed to have a quick walk in, if only to shut him up, on the condition he promised we could go straight back with no dips in the pool. I didn't need any brain-eating amoeba slipping up my nose. Satisfied, he grabbed my hand, leading me in with the confidence of an experienced woodsman. We wandered through the dense cluster of trees, sun sinking ever lower, the red and orange canopy above casting us into shadow. 20 minutes in, scraped up, tired and with no pool in sight, I'd had enough. Just a bit farther, said Rob. The trees seemed to clear a little, and we came into an area of sparser foliage. We both stopped, and a feeling of dread washed over me. There was suddenly no bird song, no buzzing of insects. Everything had become pin-drop silent. In front of us rose a sheer wall of mossy slate, in the middle of which there stretched a yawning, black moor. A cave, shouted Rob. Had this not been on his map or mentioned in the guide? Did that mean we were terribly off course? I could see perhaps a metre or two inside before it became too dark to make anything out. A rush of wind came from behind, seeming to urge us forward, creating a soft, almost imperceptible whistle. There was a coldness coming from within, a smell of damp and decay. "Shall we have a quick peek?" he asked. "I don't want to go in," I said. "You can wait out here if you want, I'll be quick." He took a few steps forward and stuck his head inside. "It looks like it goes quite deep," he said. "Echo! Echo!" I couldn't articulate my reluctance, my aversion to going inside. I felt repulsed by the cave. Rob disappeared into the darkness. I waited, anxiously scuffling my sore feet on the ground, rubbed raw by my hiking boots. After 5 minutes, when Rob hadn't returned, I started to wonder if I should get over myself and stick my head in for a look. What if he'd fallen in the dark, or banged his head on a low-hanging stalactite? Caves could be treacherous. All that slippy, mossy slate. There might be bats in there. A sudden drop. Anything could have happened. As I was about to gather my courage, there came a scream, clear as a bell. It echoed from deep within the cave. I'd never heard a man make a noise like that. I hesitated, wanting to run, but then another scream pierced the silence. I couldn't leave him. I readied my torch and went in. The cave was long and deep, with no end in sight. Rob screamed again, and the sound echoed all around me. My small shaking light did little to guide me on my way. I moved forward, pointing it at my feet. Still, I slipped on the unsteady shale. My left foot shot forward, causing me to fall hard on my right shin and cry out in pain. Something ran quickly in front of me, its footsteps scampering right by my nose. I beamed my light at the sound, but it moved fast, seeming to scurry up the side of the cave wall and over my head. Panicking, I swung the torch around. My heart leapt as I saw Rob not far away, overlooking something I couldn't see. But what was that thing with him? Some creature draped across his shoulders, long and spindly, undeniably of the woods that surrounded us. It was a woman, I thought, had been a woman, white skin like stretched paper, and limbs like a spindly ancient tree, towered over him. I felt that it must be very old, ancient even. It stank of damp earth, and whispered something that bounced off every wall and filled the cave. Then it drew in on him. Rob cried out in pain. Was it biting him? I couldn't be sure. And then it saw me looking, and it dropped to the ground and scuttled away into the dark, with the quickness of a beetle on the underside of a rock. I crawled forward, not daring again to stand. I was shouting Rob's name, but he made no response. As I reached him, I realised he was standing at the edge of a huge abyss. The cave floor gave way into a pit that seemed to reach down to the very centre of the earth. There was no telling how deep it went, or how vast it was. "Get back!" I shouted. "Rob, let's go!" He didn't seem to hear me. I pushed myself up, and in doing so, dropped my torch. It rolled over the edge and disappeared. I never heard it land. It just fell and fell. Now in pitch darkness and terrified, I began to move backwards and away from certain death. It was then that I heard a voice coming from behind me. Distant but recognisable. I turned to face it, groping blindly, when my hands brushed against something moving. I screamed and stood to get away from the thing, but suddenly there was something attached to me like a leech. Sucking. My neck, my ankle. I gagged and shouted and fought, kicking and scratching, feeling the cold flesh of something I couldn't see. I managed to dislodge it and ran. I stumbled over a rock, falling and twisting my ankle. But light, I could see light. I crawled, cutting and grazing my hands and knees, until I found myself once again at the mouth of the cave. I tumbled out and gripped the cool grass in my fingers and hungrily sucked in the clear air. "Right, shall we head back?" said Rob. "Must be quite late now." He stood smiling in the clearing, eyes fixed on the smattering of bright stars above. I stared at him in disbelief. "What happened?" I asked, barely able to form words. How he got out in front of me I couldn't begin to imagine. "What do you mean you went into the cave and I waited out here?" "I went in after you," I gasped. "You were screaming." Rob frowned at me, puzzled. "Have you fallen over? Are you bleeding?" He reached out to touch me, but I pulled back. The tips of his fingers, which just brushed the skin of my hand, felt cold. "What was that thing in there?" I said. My nose dribbled and tears streamed from my eyes. Every part of me ached, purple bruises already forming. "I really don't know what you mean, Lauren," he replied. His eyebrows knitted together in concern. What was I to do? I was out in the middle of nowhere, in a foreign country, with nobody else to turn to. "Fine," I said. "Let's just get out of the woods, get the tent up and drive back first thing." "Back?" he said. We'd planned to stay the whole weekend, but when he saw my face he shrugged and fell silent. The journey back would take longer in the dark, especially with only one torch between us. I needed a doctor. I needed shots. Did they have rabies over here? My mouth felt dry. Was that regular thirst or something else? We started walking, stumbling over branches, me swearing with every other step, cursing whatever fool had first thought of sleeping outdoors for fun. I was the one out in front. That was a first. Rob lagged behind me, breathing raggedly, face clammy and pale. When I asked if he was all right, he would snap that he was fine, so I didn't press it. We came to a distinctive fir that we had passed on our way in, and I leant against it to rest my tired back and legs, the cooling sweat on my back making me shiver. Rob stopped next to me. "I think maybe we should go back and camp in the clearing." "Are you mad? I'm not camping near that cave," I snapped. He started walking again, but in the wrong direction. "It's this way," I said. Rob paused. In amongst the mass of trees and bushes, he almost blended in with the branches, swaying slightly in the night breeze. I couldn't see his face. I wasn't sure I wanted to. At the forefront of my thoughts was the horrible reality that I was dependent on this man to get me out of here and drive me back to civilization. I wondered how hard it could be to work a manual car. Surely I could get it to chug along if I had to. But the keys were in his backpack. Just as I was about to shout out to him, he began to pull off his coat and shirt. I was too confused to react at first, but then I saw it. His back was torn half to shreds, red lacerations throbbing and oozing in time with his laboured breaths. Half of me wanted to run up and ask if he was okay, but I held back. Somehow he'd managed to get dirt and leaves in his wounds. I shuddered as I looked closer. No. For a moment I couldn't comprehend it. Not in his wounds. The mess was coming from his wounds. He groaned as a slurry of leaves and mud and twigs pushed and pulsated its way out of him. It slopped and fell to the ground like some hideous afterbirth. He turned to look at me, his eyes narrowing in the torchlight that beamed into his face, wearing an expression I'd never seen before on him. It was feral, hungry. It was the face of that thing from the cave. I ran. I bent almost double as I pushed through walls of trees, scratched, stumbling. Behind, I heard a heavy body clambering up a tree trunk, then skittering above in the canopy. I didn't waste time looking up, just moved, but he was faster than me. There came a whooshing sound, and he dropped like a stone and landed on my back, pushing all the air from my lungs as I collapsed on the ground. He was on me, pushing on the back of my neck, cold hands, a face drawing closer. I swung my torch up and hit him hard in the temple. He screeched and fell back a moment, and I gathered myself and sprinted, every muscle and bone battered beyond anything I'd experienced. I don't know how long I ran. Lungs on fire, feet wet and slippy with blood, my dying torch, and the pale moon above guiding my path. After a long while, I realised I could no longer hear Rob behind me. As the sun began to poke out from below the horizon, my eyes burned with the brightness, and I sought shelter in a thick and shaded cluster. But what was that? Voices? I snaked along the ground, following the sound and avoiding the unbearable light, wondering if I was concussed. People. There were people there, and a tent. A family. They spoke a language I didn't recognise. Romanian? Portuguese? It didn't matter. I dragged myself forward, crying for help. I saw the father first. His eyes turned wide and he fell backwards from his camping chair. A child screamed, and he gathered her up in his arms. His wife joined them, and they looked at me with such expressions. I moved forward, and they stepped back. There was something intoxicating about their scent. It made my mouth yearn. A terrible itching spread across my torso. It radiated through me. I ripped off layers to expose the burning skin underneath. Blood and leaves. I pressed my nails into the bark of a tree and started to ascend. Featherlight. I danced across the shadows of the canopy. They ran, but I was faster.